Women in Transition is a book that introduces women to a new way of thinking about the events that shape their adult lives, like marriage or childbirth or job loss. And it also introduces a toolkit specifically designed for women who choose to transition over the arc of their lives. The book is really a chronicle of my own transition story, as well as the stories of hundreds of other women who were kind enough to share their transition stories with me. I didn't start out to write a book about transition. I actually encountered transition by chance. In my mid-40s, I found myself for the first time really questioning whether or not the career I had pursued for more than 20 years really held the value that I thought it did. I've had the great good fortune in my life to be a Harvard MBA. I was the CEO and founder of a venture capital-backed company that was sold, and I served in the C-suite of a Fortune 500 company. I added 2 children to the mix about 5 years before I found myself at this unfamiliar place. They were born within 16 months of each other, and as they entered elementary school, things started unraveling. I found myself at a place that for the first time, I really thought that there had to be something more. I hadn't worked for 20 years to get the depth of what I was seeing in the corporate world. I hit the pause button on my career. And I think not only I, but everyone around me was uncomfortable. I was in an instant ashamed that I didn't know the answer to the question, hey Linda, what's next for you? And at the same time, I was incredibly isolated, right? And I also felt guilty that I wasn't working the 60 hours a week that I had come to know meant or was who I was, right? That's what I did, and I wasn't doing it really for the first time. Thank God I had the presence of mind at that moment to outreach to other women and really listen to what they said. And what I heard fascinated me. In almost every case, right, nearly universal, I heard qualifiers as I talked to women. I remembered one woman sharing with me her decision to stay home full-time with her children. And it was fascinating because there was a mild apology that she used in terms of communicating to me her decision, right? It was fascinating to me how these qualifiers were everywhere as I talked to women. So at the same time I'm listening to these women, I'm also searching for tools to help me figure out this very unfamiliar place. And I was surprised, but I found nearly zero. Nothing was available to help me figure this out. In response to this, I kind of leaned back on something I always knew, and I began some very disciplined research, right? There was something in this concept of transition that really captivated me. So I talked with more than 200 women about their experiences in transition, and it was amazing what I learned, right? I learned that regardless of what starts a transition, our triggers, transitions follow a very common pattern, right? And so whether or not someone has a geographic move or retires or goes through divorce, all of these things can trigger a transition, and if that transition occurs, then it follows the exact same pattern. Another thing I learned is that transition has the opportunity to occur very frequently over the arc of our adult lives. In fact, I polled women who were familiar with transition, and more than 90% of them expected to transition within 5 years. All of this together helped me conclude that transition is a very rich and important area for women. Transition is widely misunderstood in our society, and as a result, the skill sets that we need to navigate it are underdeveloped. My hope in writing this book is to provide women with the information to understand transition and to give voice to what holds value and meaning to each of us. My work now is pivoting towards making this book be a cornerstone to a much larger effort to increase the capacity for transition among women everywhere. For decades, we've talked about what we need to help women progress, right? We have spent years talking about programs in the workplace that can help women integrate all the things in their lives with a successful career. We've talked in the public arena about policies necessary to do that. Those things need to continue to happen, but in parallel to all of that, we need to bring up this awareness of transition and women so that together we'll have policies and programs, and we'll have women articulating what it is they want and how they will view success. And that's the thing that's going to get women's progress accelerate beyond what programs or policies have allowed us to do and really move forward in ways that we've never even imagined.